This is a presentation by Tori Russell for the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center regarding the hatching forums. Today's talk is going to be about the unique selling proposition. Essentially, this was defined in the 1940s as a positioning statement, a statement you would make in the marketplace so your consumer and your suppliers and your employees would know exactly who you were. Let's look at an example of this. For example, what does Apple stand for? What are the core values that you as a consumer see? What about their employees? What about people who develop technology for them or manufacture that for them? Remember, the core values have to go across all of their product line, the hundreds of different products that they offer, and have one central value or theme on which to stand by. This would be your USP in the marketplace. So I think that the Apple USP would be something along the lines of think different. The products are well made, they're outside the mainstream market, they have a cool factor, they're highly engineered. I think everyone would agree that this is pervasive across all of their products. Let's look at another player. HP. What is their USP? Can anyone tell me? What do they represent? What do their employees feel when they walk out the door at 5 o'clock? Who are they? What place in your mind does HP hold? I think it's sad a company of this size and breadth really has no set figure in your mind as to who they are and what they do. Really, they have no USP. This is a disaster. This is a very big problem for HP because you have no idea what they stand for. They don't know what they stand for. There's no market opinion of why they're in business. So let's talk about ketchup. Heinz Ketchup, a reputable manufacturer, back in the 80s decided that they were going to take the high ground in the market and demand that they had the best idea in ketchup. What was that idea? We're thick. That's right. Heinz stuck a fork in a plate of ketchup and it stood up and they said, we're thick. Ketchup is thick. Nobody wants runny ketchup. And of course, this was a tremendous marketing campaign. And imagine if you were a competitor to Heinz and you saw this coming, and what do? So let's say, for example, you're Del Monte. What do you do? So we're talking about the problem of having a USP and then having a reframing argument for the competitor. So you take a stand and now your competitor takes a stand, and who comes out the better? And the problem is, how do you maintain your USP over time? This is an evolutionary problem. So let's go back and look at Del Monte's situation. So here it is. The competitors claim that they're thick. So what does Del Monte say? They can't say, we're thicker. In fact, they have to take a totally different tack, otherwise they look ridiculous. So let's look at some of the options that Del Monte might have. What do you think those might be? Well, Del Monte might say, for example, it's about taste, not thickeners. We're all natural products. We get the best flavor. Ketchup is about adding flavor. We do it the old-fashioned way. We mix 100% tomatoes until they thicken naturally. Now they've totally reframed the argument, and of course, here you have Heinz, who had set the high ground with thickeners, looking ridiculous, even though Del Monte doesn't really say, and those guys use thickeners. There's no accusatorial problem here. It's simply moving the message to a new framing argument that makes more sense and grabs new high ground. A few years ago, there was a man named Reagan who was our president. And it was often thought that Ronald Reagan was too old to run for office a second term. And there's a famous moment in media where he absolutely changed the argument on this. So here, let's take a listen.
You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
So I think that's fairly clear here what was going on here for Reagan and how he changed that argument. But this becomes an evolutionary problem. For example, IBM created the ability to hold and process corporate data. Then the next company comes along, they have to take a new position, reframe the argument, and so let's say, for example, Dell, one of the few survivors of the PC era, would say, we're holding and processing your personal data. And then the next company coming along, for example, Microsoft, says, we'll organize that data and allow you to run it on any kind of PC, and including Windows actually and Macs too. And then they get out snooped by the next company coming along. Again, this is an evolutionary process, and you see that Google changes the argument and say it's really about search. It's about searching the world from any computer on all the data. So now we have the generational change as we go through this evolutionary process from one company to the next, changing and grabbing the next high ground. Facebook, of course, says, no, it's about your social arc. It's the knowledge and understanding of your friends that you need to find and understand. So they have, again, reframed the argument. And from there, we go to the next company that comes along, for example, and that would be Groupon. Groupon says, now you don't have to search for it. You know it's local, and we bring you the best stuff cheap. So they're able to reframe the argument once again. Now, it's not that any of these other companies didn't try to get into these businesses. They were unable to establish the high ground. So then there's Twitter as another example. You only need to say it in short, brief headlines. Everything you do is 140 characters. So this evolutionary process is continuing, and for example, currently I would say that Pinterest takes all of the former ideas and stores and shares your wants and desires with your social media. And this is a perfect example of outclassing the former companies and incorporating everything they did into the next model. This is an evolutionary thing in many cases, where we have this constant USP and reframing of the argument. The next problem, of course, is the creative destruction aspect of this, when a company has to pivot. And certainly Microsoft has tried to get into browsers and do other things, and they've gotten into search with Bing, and they're continually pivoting. But are they winning at this battle? And you see companies like Facebook buying up Instagram for $1 billion. So it's very hard to kill your current USP because that's your cash cow and pivot into another business. They're continually doing it as we evolve and develop. So now let's take a quick exercise. Imagine that you are a tablet computer company going up against Apple Computer. You have 5 minutes. We're going to break up into groups, and then we'll spend 1 minute each group presenting their USP, and then we'll discuss a reframing argument for that USP. Here again are the definitions. Let's review those together here quickly, and let's get started, and then we'll go from there. Again, my name is Torrey Russell. I appreciate you giving me time today. I'm happy to help anyone in the room who has a startup or a business and wishes to have some insights and thoughts that maybe they haven't approached before. Thank you for your time today.